Hi AP Research students, Mr. Muller here, and in today's video we're going to be talking about how you can take those 15 to 20 sources, research papers rather, that you have used to develop your own research, and how you can then go to a lit review that's included in the AP Research paper. That's what we're going to be focusing on today. Hope you're excited. I'm excited. Let's get started. Now, the lit review encompasses the first 3 rows of the AP Research paper rubric. It is the introduction, noting the topic and its significance, the definitions, the history of research, the gaps in current research, and the call for further research, which includes your research question. That can be up to 10 pages of your entire paper. So how do we take those 15 to 20 sources in order to develop that? Well, there's a couple of steps. Now, I have to emphasize, you need to listen to me on this process. It has taken me a long time to develop these steps, and it's been troubleshooted multiple times. I'm not saying it's perfect, but this has been effective for the last couple of years when I've taught this course. So please, it's going to seem a little repetitive at some point, but you got to follow along with me. The first thing you do is you're going to make something called annotated bibliographies. Now, annotated bibliographies can have different requirements depending on the teacher and the school that you're at, but what you're going to be required to do is take these annotated bibliographies and you're going to be summarizing the research papers that you've collected. You're going to be evaluating the research using PARC, and you're going to be reflecting on how that individual research connects to other research that you've collected and the research that you're going to be conducting. The reason that I'm looking for these 3 things is because I want to be able to tell that you understand the research that you've collected, that you've determined that it's credible to use, and I want to make sure that you're being metacognitive about your thinking and how it can apply to your own research and how it's connected to others in terms of its synthesis. Now, this is going to be the format you will be making your annotated bibliographies in. It's called Smarter. And when you use Smarter, you can ensure that everything that I'm looking for in this annotated bibliography is being included. So the first thing you're going to do is situate your research. Tell me what was the goal. What was the project goal? What was the research question? Give me a signal phrase to start it, then tell me what the research question is. After that, tell me what was the method the researchers used. I want approach, design, data method, specific method, and data analysis. I want everything. I want to know that you've been able to identify that in your research papers. Next, I want some sort of quote from that research that you think is extremely valuable. Now, what I'm looking for here in terms of the A, or annotate, is that you can pick out important implications or conclusions in that research that has informed your own investigation of that topic. Then you're going to give me a reference. Use the bibliography of that source to mine for other sources. Where could you continue to delve into other research if you wanted to? Then you're going to give me the T in Smarter, transfer. What are the implications of the source? Now, you can tell me the implications that the authors in this research actually stated. If they didn't give implications, tell me what the conclusions of this research meant to the broader discipline. It lets me know you can pick that out in a research paper and understand how this research is connected to the overall discipline. Then you're going to give me E in Smarter, evaluate, which means you are going to tell me what are any limitations of the research that exists, and you are going to use PARC to evaluate the source. Purpose, accuracy, authority, relevance, credibility. Tell me how it falls in terms of PARC. And lastly, you're going to give me some reflection. You're going to tell me your personal insights into your topic. Tell me how you think this connects to not only other research papers that you've collected, but also the research that you're doing. I want to make sure you're metacognitive. You will be doing that for all of your research papers that you've collected. Now, you take those annotated bibliographies, and based off of that, you can then start working toward your lit review. Again, first 10 pages of your research paper, give or take a few, and the first 3 rows of the AP Research paper rubric. So, I need to give you a couple of spoilers about lit reviews. Depending on the professor you have, and depending on the university you go to, the requirements in lit reviews can be different. However, there are a few commonalities that you will find in every lit review that you need to include in yours. The first thing is a basic introduction, 1 to 1.5 pages generally, which introduces the topic and tells me why this is significant to research. It's very similar to the introductions that you were required to write in AP Seminar, where you're asked to identify the topic and tell me why this is worth investigating, why we should care as an audience. Very similar. The second component, which doesn't have to be after the introduction, it can be later, depends on your discipline, that's the 75th time I've told you this, is a definition section. Define those terms. Now, these two components make sure that we are on the same page, that we've established common ground in introducing this topic. Next component of a lit review is the history of research. This is by far the longest section, where not all of the 15 to 20 sources you've collected, but most, depends on the discipline. Some students can do all of them. Some students choose selectively the most important research out of those 15 to 20 sources. And then you are then going to tell me the history of that research. What research has been done on that topic? Contextualize it. Tell me the current conversation on your topic. Now, there are two ways to do a history of research. Chronologically, and this is, you'll see this much more commonly in the sciences, where it's, here was this research, then this, and this, and here's how that research developed over time. Or by common methodology or thematically. For instance, if you're looking at a topic that can be looked at through, let's say, psychological, that this topic was researched in different lenses. So there was a psychological component to the research, maybe an economic, maybe a social. How was this, you could split it up that way. How was this topic researched in different, from different lenses? Which one do you choose, Mr. Muller? Take a look at your research papers. Depends on your discipline. Now, for each of these sources you're going to be talking about in the history of research, here's what you need to do. First, signal phrase, research question, methodology, tell me the conclusions, and tell me the implications and limitations. Now, you don't need to tell me the limitations if they didn't include them, but if they did, just note them. It'll help create synthesis with the other sources. Then you typically have a synthesis statement to connect the rest of the research together. Funny enough, a lot of the things I just asked for in the history of research, you can find in your annotated bibliographies. That's why I ask you to do them. The last two components of a lit review are the current situation of the topic. So you've now told me the current conversation of research in that topic. What gaps exist? What hasn't been researched? What hasn't been researched thoroughly enough? What limitations are there in the field? Because that will lead to your call to research. Here are the gaps in the current topic, and now my research question will attempt to fill some of those gaps. That's a lit review. Now, the question that you might have for me is, Mr. Muller, how do I get from annotated bibliographies to the lit review? Well, I wish I created this, but I didn't. Use something called a lit review matrix. Now, don't worry about this 3 of your sources to create. This would be an example that I would give you in class. But this is what a lit review matrix looks like. It is merely a table where you plug in the discipline of each research paper you collected, the year it was published, the evidence that was gathered. Now I have to explain this. By evidence gathered, I mean they got responses back from 200 participants in an online survey. They interviewed 10 people. They did a focus group with 20 individuals. They did a case study following 4 people. They analyzed 1,000 research papers of meta-analysis on X. Just what was the data they were getting back? Then all the parts of their methodology. What were their conclusions, their limitations, and implications? The reason why I ask you to take the annotated bibliographies and create a lit review matrix for every one of your sources is this allows you to see the commonalities and differeses in all the research papers you have. It allows you to clearly organize it and see it so you can figure out, do I need to do this chronologically? Do I need to do it thematically? And how can I make sure that I'm properly synthesizing all these research papers together to be a collective whole? That's what the lit review matrix is for. It's a little bit tedious, I understand, but it's how you can successfully transition from annotated bibliographies to that lit review. Now in class, we're going to be looking at annotated bibliographies. We're going to look at lots of examples of a lit review and what those actually look like. How is this organized? So as long as you know, okay, I know it's an lit review, I know how to get there, that's the important success criteria that I would have for this video. Well, that's all I have. Hope you learned something you didn't know before. Thanks for watching.